One. 151. Easy page to memorize for us, right?
Yeah. There's plenty that's on there. I used to have vision.
All right, a vision for you. This chapter is powerful. So this will conclude, the forewords, the preface, the doctor's opinion, and the first 164 pages. That is the program of recovery. Everything past 164 are just experiences and stories in the back. But this chapter is a great conclusion on what we've gone through over these past several weeks. All right, for most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. I have that highlighted because that's a part of the delusion. Because it worked for us. It worked for us at one time. So that delusion that we can recapture the good part, it never really truly goes away. It gets distant when we're in recovery, but we'll always remember that something good, or the way we felt when we drank, when it worked, or when we thought it was working, that thought is still there, and that's a part of the delusion. But we have to know that will never happen. We can't recapture that happiness, when we were drinking, because we have progressed in alcoholism to this point where there is no, remember, we read it back and more about alcoholism, things will get worse. So every time we go back and think we can recapture that happiness, it's impossible. 0% chance of doing that. In fact, we go back to the same way we were when we stopped drinking, but worse. Every time. So just know that when you start thinking about those good old days, there is no going back to those good old days. That's a part of the delusion. That's a part of alcoholic thinking. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. This is 1939. Has that happened yet? No? And I have this highlighted. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself. This is an important sentence, highlight it. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, notice it's capitalized, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. So why is King Alcohol capitalized?
It took the place of your God.
It did. So that's an old higher power. What was our higher power when we were drinking? The booze and the drugs. So that's why it's capitalized. Denizens, the definition is inhabitant. Denizens, inhabitant. The chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did, and I highlighted the rest of this paragraph. And don't forget these things. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. Anybody feel those things when they woke up from a blackout next day, next week?
What are blackouts?
You try to remember, but you can't.
I got written down right after that book of Revelations.
That is from the book of Revelation, the four horsemen, for sure. Now and then a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all, feel better, work better, having a better time. I would call that the pink cloud. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. And sally, the way they use that word just means brief, very short-lived is what sally means. You see that, when you're around AA long enough, you see the newcomers come in and all of a sudden after a week, they're feeling physically great. They're feeling happy. They're feeling better,
Sally almost clueless sometimes?
They are
Ignorant?
ignorant. I'd use ignorant, lacking knowledge, for sure. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Did anybody try to act happy when they were in recovery? I did it
I
for
feel
I
great.
did it for
I'm doing
years.
good.
Yeah. How are you? Fine. What does fine mean?
I'm looking for issues to get out of here.
Yeah. Inwardly, he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. And I would highlight the rest of this. Most, if not all, alcoholics get to this point. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. This is what I call when the alcohol stops working. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. Was anybody at that place? I was. I was just drinking to survive, you know. I didn't want to live anymore, but I didn't know how to stop living, and I was too much of a coward to take my own life, so I just kept drinking. But, you know, getting to that jumping off point, and this is it's a harsh truth that a lot of people that are alcoholics, they take their own life. They die, not going to use the word sober, but they die trying to white knuckle it, trying to do this thing on their own. That anger, that resentment, that fear, all the aspects of untreated alcoholism, those don't go away. And when the alcohol stops working, it never works again. It may take away those things for a few moments, but in the end, the tolerance, mine went down to nothing. My tolerance was huge at the very beginning, cases of beer and bottles. Towards the end, I remember having a Coors Light. Blacked out after that, I woke up to bottles, but that's where my drinking ended up. So, and there's people that when they're not in recovery, that's their mind not drinking. Only so many people can go on with life after that. They're not living. What does this book teach us how to do? It teaches us how to live.
I was existing.
Existing, yeah, I was too.
Surviving.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, most of us get to that. We're just drinking to survive. We're just drinking to feel whatever we think normal is. Then we pass out, black out, wake up, and do it again. It's not a life. So, it's a stark truth, but we don't, there's so much more that let me just read, because the rest of it describes it after it. There's some amazing stuff after this. And everything after this are promises that happen in recovery. And it's okay if you don't believe them. I didn't. But today I do. We have shown how we got out from under. You say, and highlight this, yes, I'm willing. That's what it takes. That is what it takes. But am I to be consigned to a life where I should be stupid, boring, and glum, like some righteous people I see? I know I must get along with liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? I have this highlighted. Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There and the rest of this, these are all promises. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. How is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? You are going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds. Now we got millions. High and low, rich and poor, these are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have this highlighted. This is an awesome promise. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. Some of the only people I trust today are in the program of AA. You will be bound to them with the new and wonderful ties, for you will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. On that shoulder to shoulder, I have Proverbs 21:17 written above that. And that's where the Bible describes iron sharpening iron.
What is it?
That's what we do. Proverbs 27:17. Shoulder to shoulder, and the Bible says iron sharpening iron.
What is this?
27:17. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning, and I have this highlighted, of love thy neighbor as thyself. Again, that's the words of Jesus. So they're quoting Jesus Christ right there. And that is a promise. Next paragraph, more promises. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they arise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you make them above all else, I have that highlighted, and be willing, anytime you see the word willing, I would highlight it, be willing to make use of our experience, not our opinion, our experience, we are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Pretty powerful. I'm in a room full of miracles right now. Our hope is when this chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. So they were hoping when this chip of a book came out that would happen. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to health. Suppose now that through you several families have adopted this way of life. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here is a brief account. All right, this is awesome. Years ago in 1935, one of our number made a journey to a certain western city. From a business standpoint, his trip came off badly. Had he been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important. But his venture wound up in a lawsuit and bogged down completely. The proceeding was shot through with much hard feeling and controversy. On the top of this page, you can write Bill W. at 6 months. So this is Bill Wilson at 6 months sober. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak and sober but a few months, he saw that this predicament was dangerous. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom? Why did he want so much to talk with someone? How did he get 6 months sober?
Helping other alcoholics.
At Dr. Silkworth's hospital. Remember? The only thing he did, again, no sponsor, no AA. He was seeking God, but didn't know who God was at that point. He was just talking to patients at Dr. Silkworth's hospital. What kind of patients? Other alcoholics. So he went there, and we'll find out later that everybody he tried to help, not one of them stayed sober, but Bill stayed sober. So him just making the attempt to talk to another alcoholic got him 6 months. Now he's away. He's on his own. Okay? One dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby wondering how his bill was to be paid. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. The name of the hotel he's in is called the Mayflower. Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside. In there, he would find companionship and release. So he's in the hotel, Now he's in the bar, and now he's looking at the party going on. And where does his mind immediately go? Companionship and release. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend. So then his mind goes to, well, I got a drink to talk to these people. Like that. My mind used to do that. I remember that. Of course, he couldn't. I would start bracketing here and the entire next page in 155. This is so important. Of course, he couldn't drink, but why not sit hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? So he sits down at the bar and he orders a ginger ale. Party's still going on, right? After all, had he not been sober 6 months now? Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more. So immediately, where does his mind go? He's thinking about he got 6 months sober, but then immediately, I can handle 3 drinks. And we've already read his past, right? Where was Bill at towards the end of his drinking? Drinking 2 bathtub gins, bottles of gin a day. You know, he was eating, he was drinking to eat. You know, he should have been dead, many, many times. But his mind is telling him he can have 3 drinks. That's the delusion. That's that delusional thinking. So you can write that right next to that. Insanity, delusion, obsession, it's still there with him. Fear gripped him. So now he's getting, when I almost drank at 10 years, I remember this very well. That panic, that anxiety was gripping me. I was about to drink. I made the decision to drink. I already bought it. And I have this highlighted. Again, it was the old insidious insanity. That what drink? The first drink. It's not the 12th, it's the first. You drink the first, that allergy goes off, and it's over. Watch this. With a shiver, he turned away and walked down the lobby to the church directory. So right next to shiver, I put God. Up to this point, he found God. He wasn't too sure who God was, but he found God. When I was about to drink, that shiver hit my arm. When I was going to drink, I was seconds away from drinking. It hit my arm, and I picked up the phone. I'll never forget what my arm did. It was an entire tingle up and down my arm like a shiver. I didn't pick up that phone. God picked up that phone because I was drinking. In 17 years before that, when I made the commitment to drink, I was going to drink. Nothing ever stopped me. So that shiver, God stopped Bill, and I know what that shiver is because he stopped me too. So he turned away and walked down the lobby to the church directory. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar. But what about his responsibilities, his family, and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well? Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. So now his mind is going to what? Altruism. The unselfish interest in the welfare of others. He got that from Dr. Silkworth and trying to help his patients. He's starting to think about other alcoholics. That's what meetings are for. They're not for us. They are. But when we show up and make the attempt to try to help somebody, whatever's going on in our head goes away, especially if we want to drink. There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman, and I would highlight this. His sanity returned, and he thanked God. What step is that? Step 2. We already found God. Does God restore us to sanity? Boom. He let go and let God. That's what I wrote right below that.
You got the name of that clergyman?
I don't.
Walter Tunk.
Who?
Walter T.
Look at you. Walter
Yeah.
T.
Tunks. Tunks.
Okay. Walter Tunks. Thank you. But you see where the faith without works is dead comes into play? He had to take action. He got up from the bar. He took action. He went to the phone. He's taken action. He went right to God and prayed. Let go and let God. He started thinking about other alcoholics. Action, action, action. Selecting a church, this is crazy. Selecting a church at random from the directory, and just imagine yourself there when he's doing this. He's about to drink. Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver. So he just flipped through, saw a church, dialed it. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair. So this is Bob Smith. Nadir is the lowest point. I would read that word 100 times and not know what it is. The lowest point, nadir. It was the usual situation. Home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears. Arrears meaning past due. That's what arrears means. Past due. And standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, and I would highlight this is what most people even today still do not understand. The man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. XVI, and it's the foreword to the second edition. Who explained to Bill what alcoholism was? Because Bill didn't know either. Dr. Silkworth. We have the mind, and that's why the doctor's opinion is so important, Once we realize, whether you believe, whether you don't believe, whether you're agnostic, once you realize what you're up against, a light will come on. That's what happened to me. I believed I couldn't stop drinking. But once I understood what alcoholism truly was, and I didn't get that until I read the doctor's opinion in page 30 and how they connected, then all of a sudden, I got this thing. And if I don't do anything about it, I'm going to die. So you have to know the mind that you're up against, and it's saying right here, Dr. Bob did not know the mind he was up against, and he had tried everything. He was a doctor. He had tried everything. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no, and I have this highlighted, this next sentence, no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession, and we study that on page 30, that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his plight to people from whom he made his livelihood? He would do anything, he said, but that. Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home. Sometime later, and just as he thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on a roaring bender. But before that happened, Dr. Bob, he told his wife that when this man comes to his house, Bill Wilson, he only wanted to talk to him for 5 minutes, and then he wanted him out of his house. It was a 6-hour conversation at Dr. Bob's house. For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees. So again, even though he met with Bill for 6 hours, he still drank after that. So it wasn't, and we studied about this earlier. Bill had that overwhelming spiritual experience. Had to happen for AA to get started. Bob suffered for about 2 years with that obsession. I have this highlighted. He saw that he would have to face his problems squarely that God might give him mastery. One morning he took the bull by the horns and set out to those he feared what his trouble had been. Okay, so this, after Dr. Bob's roaring bender, he came back, and this is how we read how Bill Wilson did the work. How did he do the work? in the hospital when he was still shaking going through the DTs, right? This, you can write, is Dr. Bob doing the work. Let's see how he did it. Let's see how long he waited. He found himself surprisingly well received and learned that many knew of his drinking. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business. Again, he was a doctor. At midnight, he came home exhausted but very happy. He has not had a drink since. What was he doing? He's making amends right after his bender, right after he got back with Bill. He's doing the work immediately, driving around in the car making amends to people. Did he mess around? Did he wait months, years? And you hear that in meetings. I've been on my 4th step for a year. How did these guys do it? That's what I wanted to know. How did these guys recover? It tells us how they recovered. It tells us how they did the work. As we shall see, he now means a great deal to his community, and the major liabilities of 30 years of hard drinking have been repaired in 4. But life was not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Highlight this. This is a direction. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. So important. One day they called up the head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had had a first-class alcoholic prospect. She replied, "Yes, we've got a corker." I still need to do that. I want to introduce myself in a meeting as a corker. He's just beaten up a couple of nurses. Goes off his head completely when he's drinking. But he's a grand chap when he's sober, though he's been in here 8 times in the last 6 months. Understand he was once a well-known lawyer in town, but just now we've got him strapped down tight. So asterisk, this is alcoholic number 3. His name is Bill Dotson. So the third alcoholic's name was Bill too, but Bill D. Bill Dotson. So think about the occupations of the first 3 alcoholics. Stockbroker, doctor, lawyer. Alcoholism affects everybody. It doesn't matter what you do.
You got a story on the back of the book, too.
That's right.
Page 182.
Page 182 is Bill D's story. Here was a prospect, all right. By the description, none too promising. The use of spiritual principles in such cases was not so well understood as it is now. But one of the friends said, "Put him in a private room, we'll be down." 2 days later, a future fellow of Alcoholics Anonymous stared glassily at the strangers beside him in bed. "Who are you fellows, and why this private room? I was always in a ward before." So he's used to being in insane wards. It's a part of his life now, and he's a lawyer. Said one of the visitors, "We're giving you treatment for alcoholism." Hopelessness was written large on the man's face as he replied, "Oh, but that's no use. Nothing would fix me. I'm a goner." I thought that. "The last 3 times I got drunk on the way home from here, I'm afraid to go out the door. I can't understand it." For an hour, the 2 friends told him about their what? Drinking opinions? Drinking experiences. Again, everybody in this room has those drinking experiences. Everything you've gone through, every ounce of pain and suffering can be used to help someone else. That's an experience, not an opinion. Over and over, he would say, that's me, I drink like that. That's how people listen to you, is through your experience. The man in the bed, I have this highlighted, was told of the acute poisoning from which he suffered, how it deteriorates the body of an alcoholic and warps his mind. So Bob and Bill just gave him the description of alcoholism. The physical allergy, followed by the mental insanity. There was much talk about the mental state preceding the first drink. So he's not talking to him about what you're thinking after you've already drank. He's talking about your mind before you pick up that drink. The mind that is not in reality, the delusion, the persistent false psychotic belief that I can drink like other people. Yes, that's me, said the sick man, the very image. You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it'll do. You fellows are somebody I was once, but I'm nobody now. What's he going through? A lot of self-pity, right? From what you tell me, I know more than ever I can't stop. At this, both visitors burst into a laugh. Said the future fellow anonymous, damn little thing to laugh about that I can see. They don't understand why Bill and Bob is laughing. They don't realize how bad they were. He didn't realize how bad they were. The two friends spoke of their spiritual experience and told him, so I underlined spiritual experience, and told him about the course of action. I underlined course of action they carried out. So they both shared, their experience with God, but they also shared the course of action that they took, so the 12 steps. He interrupted. I used to be strong for the church, but that won't fix it. I prayed to God on hangover mornings and sworn that I'd never touch another drop, but by 9 o'clock I'd be boiled as an owl. Boiled as an owl.
You can Google it, apparently, because somebody brought it up in a meeting. You had to
Boiled as an owl? Right on. Next day found the prospect more receptive. He had been thinking it over. Maybe you're right. He said, God ought to be able to handle anything. Then he added, he sure didn't do much for me when I was trying to fight this booze racket, and I highlighted the word alone.
So boiled as an owl is a colloquial expression meaning extremely drunk.
Extremely drunk. Boiled as an owl. That's funny. Okay, I have the next two paragraphs bracketed. I would highlight this first sentence. On the third day, so this is day number 3 that he's sober, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his Creator and said he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. So on day 3, he did step 3. So here's an example of how long did these guys wait before they started doing the steps? Not long. And they did them immediately. They did them quickly. His wife came scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. And again, it's a process. That afternoon, he put on his clothes and walked from the hospital a free man. He entered a political campaign, making speeches, frequenting men's gathering places of all sorts, often staying up all night. He lost the race by only a narrow margin. I have this highlighted. But he had found God, and in finding God, he had found himself. That was in June 1935. He never drank again. He too has become a respected and useful member of this community. He has helped other men recover and is a power in the church from which he was long absent. So you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. And I highlighted that. Altruism. After several failures to find others, a 4th turned up. He came...
Ernie G.
Ernie G. This is Ernie G. AA number 4. He was the first, what do you call it when you're in and out all the time? That's where that term came from, was from Ernie G. It's...
Revolving door.
That's one of them, but there's another term. Someone that keeps going in and out, in and out, in and out. Anyway, that was Ernie G. The first 3, when they found God, when they were presented with step 1, the condition of alcoholism, they never drank again. Ernie G, he was in and out. He proved to be a devil-may-care young fellow whose parents could not make out whether he wanted to stop drinking or not. They were deeply religious people, much shocked by their son's refusal to have anything to do with the church. He suffered horribly from his sprees, but it seemed as if nothing could be done for him. He consented, however, to go to the hospital where he occupied the very room recently vacated by the lawyer. And a lot of people come into AA that, their parents were very religious, and a lot of them got beat up by religion. They didn't know who God was. They got a bad representation of who God was. And I talked to a lot of those people that are in AA. He had 3 visitors. After a bit, he said, "The way you fellows put this spiritual stuff makes sense. I'm ready to do business. I guess the old folks were right after all." So one more was added to the fellowship. At this time, our friend of the hotel lobby incident remained in that town. He was there 3 months. He now returned home, leaving behind his first acquaintance, the lawyer, and the devil-may-care chap. So this is Bill going home. The other 3 are still in that town. I highlighted the rest of this. These men had found something brand new in life. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others. Huge, huge. Again, altruism. How am I going to be happy, joyous, and free? I got to give it away. They shared their homes, their slender resources, and gladly devoted their spare hours to fellow sufferers. They were willing, by day or night, to place a new man in the hospital and visit him afterward. They grew in numbers. They experienced a few distressing failures, but in those cases, they made an effort to bring the man's family into a spiritual way of living, thus relieving much worry and suffering. A year and 6 months later, these 3 had succeeded with 7 more. Seeing much of each other, scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women, happy in their release, and constantly thinking how they might present their discovery to some newcomer. You guys want to know the rest of them? I have the names here.
I got him too.
So number 4 was Ernie G. Number 5 was Hank P. or Henry P. And he wrote to the employers. He was the guy locked up in the barn before page 1 in the doctor's opinion. So he was 5. Number 6 was Phil S. Number 7 was Tom L. Number 8 was Fitz M. Fitz. Number 9 was Walter B. Number 10 was Joe D. Number 11 was Jack W. Number 12 was Paul S. And I even have 13. They just called him JDH. Is that what you got?
13 JDH.
JDH. So there's your first group. Actually, the first group was Bill and Bob and Bill. In addition to these casual get-togethers, what are these casual get-togethers they're doing? Meetings. It became customary to set apart one night a week for a meeting to be attended by anyone or everyone interested in a spiritual way of life. Someone brought that up, I think, last week. So the Sieberlings was the place. It was a couple. They weren't even alcoholic, but they put their house up so people could meet at their house for these meetings once a week. Harriet Sieberling was her name. Aside from fellowship, I have this highlighted, and sociability, the prime object was to provide a time and place where what people might bring their problems? New people. I used to think a meeting was for everyone to come here and vomit their problems and go home. That's what I thought a meeting was. I really did. Turns out it's not. New people should. People struggling should. They need to share their problems. But people that aren't struggling, that are in fit spiritual condition, it's our job to carry the message. That's what we should be doing in a meeting.
When my husband was in Vegas, we were in Vegas, but he was in AA, NA, but he told me he was never allowed to talk. The
Not
old
allowed?
timers- The old timers basically told him you had to earn that right. You had to prove yourself before you were allowed to speak. And he never understood it.
That sounds like ego, a lot of ego.
It
Yeah.
had been like 34 years,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
You get that a lot in the rooms of AA too,
Yeah.
a lot. Sponsors will tell people, shut your mouth and listen.
Yeah, they turn it into hiring and firing, and it's,
Yeah.
Yes, my husband's been clean for 35 years. So must be nice.
I don't know. I know people 35 years that are absolutely miserable.
Oh.
Absolutely miserable. Yeah. Well, good.
He?
Oh.
My
I don't-
husband.
Oh, got you. I didn't know
No,
what you were
no,
talking
no,
about. Got
my
you.
husband.
Got you.
No.
I thought you were talking about the
Oh,
in
no,
the meeting.
I don't
Got
even
you.
know that. I wasn't. Yeah.
Okay. Outsiders became interested. One man and his wife placed their large home at the disposal of a strangely assorted crowd. This couple has since become so fascinated that they have dedicated their home to the work. So again, that's what they did. They let, alcoholics use their home for meetings. It's pretty awesome. Many a distracted wife has visited this house to find a loving and understanding companionship among women who knew her problem, to hear from the lips of their husbands what had happened to them, to be advised how her own wayward mate might be hospitalized and approached when next he stumbled.
First Al-Anon.
It is. Al-Anon was formed and they didn't even know it. Absolutely. I have this highlighted. Many a man, yet dazed from his hospital experience, has stepped over the threshold of that home into freedom. Many an alcoholic who entered there came away with an answer. And if you read like other books, like Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, newcomer went into that home. They did step 1 immediately. They did step 2 immediately. And then they went upstairs and did step 3 immediately in their first meeting. So a newcomer did not leave without starting on step 4 after their first meeting. He succumbed to that gay crowd inside who laughed at their own misfortunes and understood his. Impressed by those who visited him at the hospital, he capitulated entirely. Capitulated means to give up, to surrender. Capitulate. He capitulated entirely when later, in an upper room of this house, he heard a story of some man whose experience closely tallied with his own. The expression on the faces of the women, that indefinable something in the eyes of the men, the stimulating and electric atmosphere of the place, conspired to let him know that here was haven at last. I have all this highlighted up to the top of 163. The very practical approach to his problems, the absence of intolerance of any kind, the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people had were irresistible. What the heck? I'm missing pages.
You're missing 61 and 62.
I am. I need your book.
Go. Hey.
Now your book's falling apart. All right. When your books are falling apart like this, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. He and his wife would leave elated by the thought of what they could do now for some stricken acquaintance and his family. They knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known these strangers always. They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had visioned the great reality, capitalized, their loving and all-powerful Creator, capitalized. I love that word for God, great reality. And that is a promise. Now, this house will hardly accommodate its weekly visitors, for they number 60 or 80 as a rule. So that's how big that meeting was. Pretty big at that time. That's a big meeting now. Alcoholics are being attracted from far and near. From surrounding towns, families drive long distances to be present. A community 30 miles away has 15 fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Being a large place, we think that someday its fellowship will number many hundreds. So they were hoping for hundreds. Hundreds. Where are we at today?
2 million almost.
Yeah, and there's only 3 countries that don't have AA. Only 3. Every other country has a meeting in there. So it's what they were hoping for hundreds, and look what God did. It's pretty awesome. I have this whole next paragraph highlighted. But life among Alcoholics Anonymous is more than attending gatherings and visiting hospitals, cleaning up old scrapes, helping to settle family differences, explaining the disinherited son to his irate parents, lending money and securing jobs for each other when justified. These are everyday occurrences. No one is too discredited or has sunk too low to be welcomed cordially. Here's the key: if he means business. He's got to want recovery. If he means business. Social distinctions, petty rivalries, and jealousies, these are laughed out of countenance. This is awesome. Being wrecked in the same vessel, I would underline this, I would star this. Being restored and united under one God, with hearts and minds attuned to the welfare of others, which is altruism again. One God, altruism. The things which matter so much to some people no longer signify much to them. How could they? Under only slightly different conditions, the same thing is taking place in many eastern cities. In one of these, there's a well-known hospital for the treatment of alcoholic and drug addiction. So this is Towns Hospital. This is Dr. Silkworth, which we read about before page 1. They're going back to that. 6 years ago, one of our number was a patient there. So back to Bill Wilson. Many of us have felt for the first time the presence and power of God within its walls. I would highlight that. That's where God started AA, was at Towns Hospital with Dr. Silkworth. We are greatly indebted to the doctor in attendance there. Again, you can write out Silkworth. For he, although it might prejudice his own work, has told us of his belief in ours. Why does he believe in theirs? He was an expert in alcoholism. We studied his credentials. That was his job. And how much success did he have? None. Where did he see success? Alcoholics helping other alcoholics in his hospital. Pretty awesome. Understanding our work, he can do this with an eye to selecting those who are willing and able to recover on a spiritual basis. That's very important. Willing and able to recover on a spiritual basis. Many of us, former patients, go there to help. Then in this eastern city, there are informal meetings, such as we have described to you, where you may now see scores of members. There are the same fast friendships. There is the same helpfulness to one another as you find among our Western friends. There is a good bit of travel between East and West, and we foresee a great increase in this helpful interchange. So Akron, Ohio, and New York. And they would go back and forth. That was AA during that time. Then they formed one in Cleveland, a little bit later. But for many years, it was Ohio, Cleveland, New York. That was it. But they traveled by car, nonstop, weekly sometimes.
Price of gas was cheap.
But the willingness, these guys, and it kept increasing. Remember, they called it a mushrooming process. So they only had 3 places to go, but the membership increased substantially. Someday, this is awesome, I would bracket this paragraph. We hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. To some extent, this is already true. Some of us are salesmen and go about. Little clusters of 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. Through contact with 2 larger centers, Those of us who travel drop in as often as we can. This practice enables us to lend a hand at the same time avoiding certain alluring distractions of the road about which any traveling man can inform you. Thus we grow, and so can you, though you be but one man with this book in your hand. We believe and hope it contains all you will need to begin. Do you need anything else to help somebody? Yourself, this book. You can help somebody. We know what you are thinking. You are saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone and I couldn't do that. And I would highlight the rest of this. And don't anybody ever tell you that. Because you can. I wrote in huge letters on the top of this page, you can. You forget you have just now tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. I got the willingness and labor part. It's the patience thing that I struggle with every single day. We know of an AA member who was living in a large community. He had lived there but a few weeks when he found that the place probably contained more alcoholics per square mile than any city in the country. This was only a few days ago at this writing, 1939. The authorities were much concerned. He got in touch with a prominent psychiatrist who had undertaken certain responsibilities for the mental health of the community. So this is Dr. Howard they're talking about, if you want to know who this psychiatrist is. They recognized a lot of different doctors in here, not just Silkworth, of people that supported AA. The doctor proved to be able and exceedingly anxious to adopt any workable method of handling the situation, so we inquired, what did our friend have on the ball? Our friend proceeded to tell him, and with such good effect that the doctor agreed to a test among his patients and certain other alcoholics from a clinic which he attends. Arrangements were also made with the chief psychiatrist of a large public hospital to select still others from the stream of misery which flows through that institution. That is Dr. Russell, different psychiatrist. Dr. Russell. So our fellow worker will soon have friends galore. Some of them may sink and perhaps never get up. But if our experience is criterion, more than half of those approached will become fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. When a few men in this city have found themselves and have discovered the joy of helping others to face life again, there will be no stopping until everyone in that town has had his opportunity to recover, if he can and will. Still you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who wrote this book. We cannot be sure, and I would just highlight the rest of this page. God will determine that. So you must remember that your reliance is always upon Him. Reliance on God. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. Boy, does He. When you seek Him, He will. This right here was not my idea. Not my idea at all. I had nothing to do with this. And I'm telling you the truth. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation, so this is step 11, what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. So that's a daily direction right there. The answers will come if your own house is in order. That's a big if. Remember, we got to be in fit spiritual condition. That's the goal every day. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. That's that step 11 again. There's so many old-timers that just don't practice that step. They get in a place of complacency, they're sober, and that's enough, and they're miserable, and they don't know who God is. They're telling us again, before we conclude the entire 164 pages, to see to it that my relationship with him is right. I got to seek him. If I don't know him, I got to seek him. If I'm confused about him, I got to seek him. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. How do we do that? Step 10. Step 10 is the step that tells us not to stop. The wreckage isn't going to stop just because we've done the steps. Step 10 gives us a way out and shows us how to deal with it when the wreckage does come. Wreckage will come while we're sober. Sometimes in full force. Ask this guy right here. He's gone through more things sober than he did when he was drunk. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. Important definition right here. Trudge. To walk laboriously. So you're walking while working. Walking while working. To walk laboriously. As you trudge the road of happy destiny. And then they conclude the entire 12 steps. May God bless you and keep you until then. So that closes not only the workshop, but I mean when you tell someone what the program of action, the program of recovery is, it's the preface, it's the forewords, it's the doctor's opinion, and then the first 164 pages. Are we cured?